It was almost 2047 a.m. when my phone started ringing. Sigh. At that hour, no call ever means good news. Never. I remember fumbling in the dark, half asleep, half panicked, searching for the phone on my nightstand. The screen lit up my wrinkled face, sharp and cold, pulling me out of sleep. The name flashing on the screen, Ethan, my grandson, the only one who still called me Grandma without being told to. My heart skipped. Ethan? Sweetheart, what's wrong? What I heard next made the blood drain from my body. Grandma, his voice cracked, trembling, soaked in tears. I'm at the police station. Chelsea, she hit me. But she says I attacked her. Dad doesn't believe me. I froze. What? I whispered, my voice shaking. Where are you? He muttered the station's name, his breath hitching. Please come. They said if no adult comes soon, they'll move me somewhere else. I could barely breathe. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. I sat up in bed, feet touching the cold floor. My hands trembled as I searched for my clothes. Don't talk to anyone, Ethan. I'm coming. Right now. When the call ended, I just stood there, holding the phone as if it were the only real thing left in the world. Then I looked at my reflection in the mirror, gray hair, tired eyes, the face of a 68-year-old woman who had retired from everything years ago. But inside that reflection, I saw someone I hadn't seen in a long time. Commander Elena Stone, the woman who had spent 35 years investigating crimes, interrogating liars, and facing monsters with a steady voice and a steel heart. That night, she woke up again. I threw on my sweater and boots, grabbed my purse, and out of old habit, slid my police badge, expired, dusty, into my back pocket. I didn't know if it would help, but something told me I'd need it. Outside, the city was sleeping. Delhi, or any big city, feels different at night. Silent, but not peaceful. The kind of silence that listens. I hailed a taxi. The driver looked at me in the mirror. Where to, ma'am? Greenwich Village Police Station. Please hurry. He nodded, and the car took off. The streets blurred past, but my mind was somewhere else. Ethan, his broken voice, his words echoing again and again. Dad doesn't believe me. Sigh. My son Rob. The boy I raised alone. The man I gave everything to. He used to call me every Sunday, used to bring Ethan to visit. Until Chelsea came. His second wife. A woman too perfect to be real, and slowly she made my son forget me, drop by drop like poison falling into clean water. Now, my grandson was calling for help, and my son didn't believe him. When I reached the station, my hands were shaking, not from fear but fury. The old two-story building looked like every station I'd ever worked in. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, the faint smell of burnt coffee and old paper. I walked straight to the front desk. A young officer, barely in his 20s, looked up from his computer. Yes, ma'am? I'm here for my grandson. Ethan Stone. He flipped a page on his register. Ah, yes, the domestic assault case. Those words cut deep. Are you his grandmother? Elena Stone, I said, firm. He blinked, suddenly nervous. Stone, like Commander Stone? Just took my old badge from my pocket and placed it on the desk. His eyes widened. With his parents and the complainant, take me there. As we walked down the hallway, every step felt like walking into my past old memories, echoes of interrogations, laughter, pain. When we reached the waiting area, I saw him, Ethan, sitting on a plastic chair, shoulders hunched, eyes red and swollen. A small bandage above his eyebrow, poorly done. He looked so small, so lost. When he saw me, he jumped up and ran straight into my arms. Grandma, he whispered, his voice breaking. I hugged him tight, stroking his hair. I'm here. But over his shoulder, my eyes locked on her. Chelsea. Sitting like a queen in crisis, robe wrapped neatly, fake bruise on her arm, crocodile tears in her eyes. She looked up at me, her expression soft but calculated. That kind of face that knows how to act. Next to her stood Rob, my son, arms crossed, face tight. He didn't say a word, didn't even move toward me. Ethan, I said softly, pulling back. It's okay. I've got you. But inside, my blood was boiling. Then the office door opened, and a tall man in uniform stepped out. I knew that face. "Captain Spencer," I said. He blinked, surprised. "Commander Stone, I didn't know. Now you know." I interrupted. "Tell me exactly what's going on." He led me inside his office. Ethan followed, clutching my hand. "Commander," Spencer said as he closed the door, "this is a delicate case." "Then explain it carefully," I replied. He sighed, flipping open a folder. "Chelsea Brooks. Your daughter-in-law filed a complaint saying Ethan pushed her down the stairs after she scolded him for coming home late. Claims he hit her. She has bruises that support her story." My heart sank. "And Ethan's version?" Spencer hesitated. "He says she hit him first with a silver candlestick. But we found no such object in the house, and the home security cameras." "Don't tell me," I said bitterly. "They were broken," he nodded, 3 days before the incident. "Convenient. Too convenient." I looked at Ethan. His head was bowed, tears slipping silently. "Ethan, sweetheart," I whispered, "look at me." He looked up, eyes trembling. "Tell me the truth, my boy." All of it. And what he told me made me grip the table so hard my knuckles turned white. Chelsea had waited for him that night in the dark living room. When he walked in, she mocked him, took his father's phone, said, "Nobody cares about you, not even your dad." When Ethan tried to go to his room, she hit him with that silver candlestick. And as he lay there, she bruised herself against the wall, rehearsing her victim act before calling Rob. By the time Rob came down, half asleep, she was crying. Ethan couldn't even defend himself. And Rob called the police. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. The rage inside me burned quietly, controlled. I looked at Spencer. "You've known me for 20 years. Have I ever let an innocent person take the fall?" He shook his head. "Never. Then release my grandson. I'll take responsibility." He nodded slowly. "You'll have to sign some papers, but yes, he's safer with you." I turned to Ethan, took his hand. "We're going home." Outside, the early morning air bit through my sweater. The streets were empty, glowing orange under the streetlights. Ethan looked up at me, his voice trembling. "What are we going to do now, Grandma?" I looked straight ahead, jaw tight. "We're going to prove the truth," I said softly, "and make her pay for every tear you cried." I pulled him close, whispering, "She made one mistake tonight, my boy." Pause, trembling breath. "She hurt my family." And no one hurts my family and walks away. Because that night, I wasn't just a grandmother anymore. I was a hunter again, and Chelsea had just become my prey. It's been hours since that night ended, but the sound of that phone call still echoed in my ears. Sigh. You never forget a cry for help that raw, especially when it comes from someone you love. When I woke up the next morning, the city outside my window was just beginning to move. Buses groaning, vendors calling, the distant sound of a radio playing old songs. But inside my chest, there was still that heavy weight. Ethan was asleep on the couch, curled under a blanket. His face looked peaceful, almost angelic, except for that ugly bruise above his eye. My poor boy, whispering he didn't deserve this. I made coffee, black and strong. As I watched it drip, my mind kept spinning back to last night, to that moment when I walked into the police station and saw Chelsea's face. Those eyes, cold, rehearsed, and somehow proud. She wasn't scared. She wasn't shaken. She was in control. And Rob, my son, sigh, he just stood there like a ghost. I took a deep breath and looked at the calendar on the wall. It had been 8 years since I'd retired from the force, 8 long years pretending I was done chasing monsters. But maybe you never really stop. Maybe you just wait for the right monster to wake you up again. Around 10 a.m., there was a soft knock on my door. Ethan stirred, rubbing his eyes. I opened the door and found Captain Spencer standing there holding a folder. "Morning, Commander," he said with a tired smile. "Don't call me that anymore," I muttered. "I'm just a grandmother now." He chuckled softly. A grandmother who scared half my station last night. Ha ha! I laughed faintly, though it wasn't funny. Come in. He stepped inside, glanced around my small living room, and nodded toward Ethan, who was pretending to be asleep. Spencer lowered his voice. And on you. We're fine, I said, though my voice betrayed the fatigue. He sighed. I know that look, Elena. You're not letting this go, are you? I looked him straight in the eyes. Would you, if it were your grandson? He was awake now, staring at the ceiling. Grandma, he whispered, are they going to believe me? My throat tightened. Not yet, I said honestly, but they will, because I'm going to make them. He turned his face toward me, eyes glossy. Dad hates me now. He didn't even look at me last night, weeping softly. Oh, sweetheart, I whispered, brushing his hair back. Your father doesn't hate you. He's just blind right now. Chelsea made him blind. Ethan frowned. When she passed, he was lost. Then Chelsea came along, beautiful, charming, caring. She made him feel alive again. And when someone fills the hole grief leaves behind, you'll believe anything they say. He looked down, silent. I could see his jaw trembling. That kind of pain, the kind that comes when your own parent doesn't believe you, cuts deeper than any wound. Ethan, I said softly, I need you to tell me everything again, slowly. Don't skip anything. She said I was useless, that my mom would be ashamed of me. Then she hit me, Grandma. She really hit me. I didn't even fight back. I fell. And his voice cracked, she started hurting herself. I saw her do it. I clenched my fist so tight my nails dug into my palms. And your father? He came running down. She was crying already. She told him I pushed her. And he didn't even ask. He just shouted, called the cops, and told me I was a disgrace. The kind of rage that doesn't shout. It just simmers. All right, I said calmly. Then we'll find proof. There's always proof, even when people think they've covered their tracks. Ethan looked up. Leave that to me, my boy. That evening, after, I made Ethan dinner simple dal and rice, his favorite. I went to my old study. It had been years since I opened that drawer, the one marked cases closed. My hands trembled as I slid it open. There it was, my old investigation notebook, worn out brown leather, pages filled with half-faded ink. It smelled like old memories and adrenaline. I flipped to the back and found an old phone number scribbled in blue pen, Linda Davis, my partner for over a decade. Smart, stubborn, fearless. I dialed. It rang 4 times before a sleepy voice answered. Hello? It's Elena. Long silence. Commander, she whispered, suddenly alert. You're calling me after all these years? What's going on? I need your help. Family matter. Serious one. Tell me. I hesitated. Then, in one breath, I told her everything. Ethan, Chelsea, the police, the lies, the broken cameras, the bruise. When I finished, Linda exhaled. That woman isn't just cruel, Commander. She's dangerous. And if she planned it, it won't be her first time. Her words sent a chill down my spine. What do you mean? I asked. I've seen these kinds of women before. Calculating, charming, always playing the victim. They don't stop until they get everything they want. I'll dig into her past. Give me 2 days. Thank you, Linda, I whispered. And Linda, be careful, she chuckled softly. You taught me that, remember? When the call ended, I just sat there, staring at the city lights outside. My reflection looked back at me from the window. An old woman with tired eyes, but a fire still burning behind them. Soft laugh. You picked the wrong family, Chelsea, I murmured. You picked the wrong grandmother. Later that night, Ethan came to my room. Grandma? Can I sleep here? Just tonight? I smiled. Of course. He crawled in beside me, curling close like he used to when he was a child, afraid of thunderstorms. I wrapped my arm around him. The steady rhythm of his breathing slowly calmed me. But even as he slept, my mind didn't rest. Every instinct I had as an investigator was awake again. I could almost hear my heartbeat syncing with the ticking clock on the wall. Tick, 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 tick. Every tick reminded me. Tomorrow. By the time the sun rose the next morning, I already had a plan forming in my head. Sigh. Sleep felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. Not when lies were turning into evidence against my own grandson. The first thing I did was make breakfast. Not because I was hungry, but because it gave me time to think. The smell of toasted bread and butter somehow made the storm inside me quieter, at least for a moment. Ethan sat at the table, silent, staring into his cup of milk. The bruises under his eyes looked darker in the daylight. I tried to sound light. You used to talk so much when you were little, remember? You'd tell me every dream you had. He gave a small smile. Those were good dreams, Grandma. And now? Now I only dream of Mom. Weeping softly, I reached over, brushing his hair. She's still here, Ethan. Maybe not where we can see her, but she's watching you. I promise. After breakfast, I sat with my old notebook again. Page after page of memories, each one reminding me how much truth I'd once uncovered with nothing but patience and instinct. I couldn't go back to the force, but I could still be that woman. I started writing down every detail Ethan had mentioned. Time of the fight, the candlestick, broken cameras, bruises on her left arm, Rob's blind trust. Then, underlined twice, I wrote, motive? People don't lie for no reason. Lies always serve a purpose. And that woman, Chelsea, she wasn't doing this out of anger. She was doing it for gain. But what could she possibly gain from turning Rob against his own son? The answer came sooner than I expected. His hands were trembling. Grandma, there's something I didn't tell you. I frowned. What is it, Ethan? He looked scared, whispering. A week before she hit me, I overheard her talking on the phone. She didn't know I was standing near the door. What did she say? She said, he swallowed, voice shaking. Don't worry, everything's going according to plan. When the old lady dies, Rob will inherit her house. We'll sell it for $4.5 million. Then we'll move to Miami, and the boy, we'll send him to boarding school. Out of sight. I froze. My chest felt heavy. What did you just say? He nodded quickly, tears filling his eyes. I swear, Grandma, I heard her say it, every word. For a moment, everything around me went quiet. No ticking clock, no sound of the city. Just that one sentence replaying in my head. When the old lady dies, that woman was planning her life after my death, and she wanted Ethan gone first. I stood up slowly, pressing my hand to my forehead. Oh, dear God! Then I laughed, low and bitter. Well, Chelsea, you really don't know who you're messing with. Ethan blinked at me, confused. I placed my hands on his shoulders and smiled. Thank you for telling me, my boy. Now we have what we need. What do you mean? I mean the hunt starts now. That night I called Linda again. She answered instantly. Commander? Linda, I need you to dig into Chelsea Brooks. Where she worked, who she married before, any name changes, addresses, financial records, anything that smells off. Got it. Give me 48 hours. I'll wait. But I didn't plan to sit still. The next morning, I went to Spencer's precinct. He looked surprised to see me. Back already? He said, rubbing his eyes. I want copies of the statements from last night, Ethan's and Chelsea's. He hesitated. Technically, I'm not supposed to. I gave him that look. The one I used to give rookies when they argued. He sighed. But this stays between us. When I read the reports, I almost laughed. Chelsea's words were perfectly measured, like a script. She claimed Ethan was unstable, had anger problems, and needed professional help. She even described how he allegedly attacked her. Everything rehearsed, everything neat. She'd been planning this for a long time. When I left the station, I wasn't just angry anymore. I was focused. Back at home, Ethan was sitting by the window, sketching. What are you drawing? I asked. He turned the notebook toward me. It was a small figure, me holding his hand, both of us walking away from a shadowy figure behind bars. My heart melted. "Ah, that's beautiful, sweetheart." He smiled weakly. "I want to draw us happy again." I couldn't help but hug him. "And you will. I promise you, Ethan, I'll fix this. For both of us." But even as I said that, my mind was racing. If Chelsea had already planned to profit off my death, she'd done something like this before. You don't just wake up one morning and decide to frame a child. You practice. And I was going to find every piece of her past and drag it into the light. That evening, while Ethan watched TV, I sat with a notepad and my laptop. Every minute that passed made my resolve harder. I searched her name online. Chelsea Brooks. Hundreds of results. Social posts, photos, fake smiles. But one thing stood out. Her profile had been created only 6 years ago. No earlier records. No school. No hometown. No family. People can hide the truth online, but they always leave crumbs. I clicked through every photo, every comment. Then I saw one comment from an old friend's account that said, "You look different, Vanessa. New life, huh?" Vanessa, my heart skipped a beat. I whispered to myself, "So that's your real name." That night, before sleeping, I sat by Ethan's side again. He had fallen asleep with his hand still holding his pencil. His face was peaceful. I brushed his hair and whispered, "You're safe now, my boy." Then I looked out the window. The moon was low, the city dim. I pulled my old badge from the drawer, rubbing a thumb over its worn edges. Sigh. "Looks like we've got one more case, old friend," I whispered, and deep inside, that same fire I'd thought was long gone flickered alive again. 2 days later, my phone rang. Linda's voice on the other end was tight, urgent. "Commander, you need to sit down before I tell you this, because what I found about Chelsea isn't just bad. It's terrifying." It was late afternoon when my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at the screen. "Linda Davis!" My pulse quickened. I answered before the second ring. "Linda," her voice came through, low and urgent. "Commander, you'd better sit down." Sigh. I felt my stomach tighten. "What did you find?" "I ran her name." "Both of them." "Both?" "Yes. Chelsea Brooks isn't real. Her legal name is Vanessa Jimenez Ruiz. Born in Houston, Texas. 34 years old, not 32 like she told your son." For a moment I didn't breathe. "Go on," Linda continued, her tone sharp and cold now, the voice of a professional who'd seen too much darkness. I dug into her records. There are 3 previous marriages, all to older men, all widowers. And in every one of them, tragedy followed. My heart dropped. "You're kidding." "Wish I were." The first husband, Richard Miller, hardware store owner, 60. He dies suddenly of a heart attack 2 years after marrying her. She inherits over $2 million. I leaned back, pressing a hand to my chest. Oh my God! The second husband, Franklin Adams, textile businessman, another accident. He falls down the stairs after a night of drinking, ends up in a coma, and dies 3 weeks later. The house cameras were, guess what? Broken, I whispered. Exactly. Linda paused for a breath. He's still alive, but his son vanished 6 months after Chelsea married him, disappeared without a trace. She sold the old man's properties and put him in a nursing home, $4 million in her account. I could hear my heart beat in my ears. My hands trembled. Linda, she's not just a manipulator. She's a predator. That's what I'm saying, Commander. She's done this before again and again. Always the same pattern, charm, isolate, eliminate, inherit. I sat there in silence for a few seconds. My breath came out in a shaky laugh. "Ha ha. Well, isn't that something? My son just married a professional widow." Linda sighed. "It's worse than that. She's got help. There's a lawyer, Gerald Hayes. He appears in every single case. He handles the property transfers, the wills, everything. And when I checked his bank records, Don't tell me. Half the inheritance money from each case went into his offshore account. I pinched the bridge of my nose. So, it's a partnership. Yes. And from what I can tell, your son is next on their list. If you hadn't shown up that night, Ethan would have been the perfect scapegoat. Once the boy was gone, and you were, she hesitated, gone too, the rest would have been easy. I couldn't even answer. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Linda, I said finally, send me everything. Every document, every name, every photo. I already emailed it. Be careful, Commander. If she's done this much, she won't hesitate to do it again. I'm not afraid of her, I said quietly. I've faced worse, but I am angry. When I hung up, I stared at the wall for a long time. Sigh. I could almost hear my late husband's voice teasing me. You said you retired, Elena. Guess not. I laughed softly, shaking my head. Guess not. I opened my laptop, clicked on the email. Dozens of files, photos, marriage certificates, obituaries. It was all there. The whole pattern of destruction. Chelsea, or Vanessa, standing beside smiling older men who never lived to see their next anniversary. In every picture she wore the same expression, gentle, elegant, perfect. But now I could see the truth behind it. A predator smiling for the camera. I whispered to myself, you've done this before, haven't you? But this time you picked the wrong family. Not all, but enough for him to understand. He looked at the photos, silent, his hand gripping mine tightly. She's done this to other families? He asked quietly. Yes. His jaw tightened. Then we have to stop her, Grandma. I smiled sadly. Not with anger, but with proof. He nodded slowly. Like detectives? Exactly like detectives. Then I want to help. I couldn't help but chuckle softly. The city below was still awake. Honking cars, barking dogs, the sound of life continuing while mine had just changed course again. I whispered to the night, Chelsea, you've been winning for too long. You fooled my son, you broke my grandson, but you won't win this one. Not this time. My phone buzzed. A new message from Linda. Check your email again. I found something else. I opened it. Attached was a short note. Gerald Hayes scheduled a call with Chelsea tomorrow at noon. Location, her home. A smile spread across my face. Oh, thank you, Linda. I grabbed my old badge again, running my thumb over the faded gold. One last case, I whispered. Let's end this properly. I didn't sleep that night. I spent hours planning, sketching timelines, jotting down ideas. The old instincts came back like muscle memory. How to set a trap, how to collect evidence legally, how to make sure no one could twist it. When dawn broke, I stood in front of the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't just a grandmother anymore. The fire in her eyes said everything. Commander Elena Stone, I said softly to my reflection, reporting back for duty. And that morning I made myself a promise. 2 days later, my doorbell rang just as I was pouring my morning coffee. The sound made my heart skip. Only 2 people ever rang at this hour. When I opened the door, there she was. Linda stood with a thick brown folder under her arm and that look on her face that said, You won't like this, but you need to see it. Morning, Commander, she said quietly, stepping inside. Morning, I replied, trying to smile. You found something, didn't you? She nodded, setting the folder on the table. You might want to sit down for this. Sigh. I sat, bracing myself. She opened the folder and began spreading out documents, photographs, and printed emails. Chelsea Brooks, she began, or should I say Vanessa Jimenez Ruiz, started using that name after her second husband's death. She legally changed it 2 weeks before she met your son. Figures, I muttered, sipping my coffee. It suddenly tasted bitter. Linda continued, I traced her pattern back almost 12 years, always the same setup. A wealthy, lonely man, widowed or recently divorced, with at least one heir she could isolate. She charms them, marries them, manipulates the will, and one way or another, the man dies. The police never dig deep because there's no visible foul play. She's careful. She handed me a photograph. Chelsea, years younger, smiling next to an older man. He looked proud, unaware that the woman beside him was already planning her future without him. "That's Richard Miller," Linda said. "He owned a hardware business in San Diego. He died suddenly. Doctors called it a heart attack. But look at this." She slid a medical report toward me. "He had no history of heart problems before marrying her. Zero." I swallowed hard. "She's been killing people quietly for years." Linda nodded grimly. "And that's not even the worst part. Her second husband, Franklin Adams, the one who fell down the stairs, his daughter told police she always suspected foul play, but Chelsea threatened to sue her for defamation. She backed off." "And the third one?" I asked, my voice trembling. Linda pulled another photo from the stack. "Retired engineer. He's still alive, but barely. Lives in a nursing home under her signature. She manages his finances. His son, Paul Vega, disappeared 6 months after their wedding." "Don't look for me. The text was sent from Paul's phone, but there's no camera footage or witness confirming he sent it." My jaw tightened. "And now she's doing the same with my son and grandson." Linda sighed. "But this time she's pushing faster, probably because she's running low on money." I rubbed my temples. "They've covered each other for over a decade." I let out a humorless laugh. "So my son's wife is a serial scammer, and her partner's a lawyer. Perfect team." Linda looked at me serious. "Elena, this isn't just fraud anymore. It's a pattern of murder and manipulation. You need to be careful. If she suspects you're on to her, she'll try to silence me," I finished for her. "Let her try." That night I couldn't eat. Ethan tried, bless him, but he could tell my mind was somewhere else. He watched me with those big eyes, so much like his mother's. "Grandma?" "Yes, sweetheart? Did you find something about her?" I hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, Ethan, she's hurt people before. People like your dad." He looked down, voice trembling. "So, she's going to hurt us too?" I reached over and squeezed his hand. "Not if I can help it. You're safe here, okay? Nothing's going to happen to you." He nodded, but his eyes said otherwise. Fear had already rooted itself deep. After he went to bed, I sat alone in the living room. The hum of the fridge was the only sound. My thoughts were racing faster than they had in years. Sigh. "You've done this to other families, Chelsea," I murmured into the silence. "But you made a mistake coming after mine." Every name, every death, every lie connected like spider silk. My eyes landed on a line in one of Linda's reports. Each of her victims' heirs were labeled as unstable or violent before their deaths. I froze. That was it. That's how she did it. She didn't just kill for money. She discredited everyone who could expose her. She made them look dangerous, untrustworthy, crazy, just like she was doing with Ethan. My breath caught in my throat. Gasp. "Oh, you clever little devil," I whispered. "You've been perfecting this for years." I leaned back, looking at the ceiling. You don't know what happens when you corner a woman who's got nothing left to lose. By midnight, I had the plan forming in my head. I wasn't going to confront her yet. No shouting, no warnings. She thrived on control, and I needed her to think she still had it. If I wanted to win, I had to make her believe I'd already lost. I smiled faintly, whispering to myself, "You play games with hearts and homes, Chelsea. But this time, I'm writing the rules." And as I blew out the last light before bed, I whispered to the dark, "Tomorrow, I start setting the trap, and when she walks into it, she won't even know it's there." Have you ever felt the slow, cold click in your chest when you realize someone has been 2 steps ahead of you the whole time? Sigh. That's exactly how it felt the morning after Linda's call. Like waking up with a bruise on your pride and a plan already forming in the same breath. I couldn't just rage and storm into a courtroom. People like Chelsea don't break under noise. They break under pressure that's invisible until it snaps. So I sat down at my little kitchen table, cup of coffee gone cold beside me, and I started to map everything like an old case file. Motive, opportunity, evidence, witnesses. Each line I wrote tightened my jaw and calmed the panic into the shape of a plan. Weeping softly, Ethan needed proof, not promises. My son needed the truth, not another shouting match. And Chelsea? Well, she needed to keep talking until she gave herself away. That was the key. People who pretend to be victims can't stop performing when they think they've already won. They boast, they gloat, they make mistakes. We would make her feel the sweet taste of victory and record every single bite. I called Linda back and explained what I wanted. Tiny cameras, live feed, and absolute silence. She didn't blink. I'll bring button cameras. Sew them into clothing. Sync to your phone. Audio, too. We'll need 2 angles, Ethan's chest and shoulder for close shots, and one hidden in a lamp or shelf outside the room for a wide view. Do you want me to get a legal consult? I could hear the soft click of her keyboard as she mapped the idea. Not yet, I said. We'll keep this legal. Everything recorded in my home is mine to capture, but we must be careful on their property. Ethan will go in like any son collecting things. Ha ha! The old thrill returned, the kind that makes your fingers move faster on a notepad. I jotted down timelines, exit routes, backup signals, and emergency codes. I wanted this to look normal on the surface. A boy collecting his things, a grandmother tired and resigned. Underneath, we would be watching everything. We tested the tiny cameras that night in my living room like 2 old spies putting on new toys. They were almost comical, smaller than a coin, unassuming as a button, with glass eyes that fed video to my phone in real time. Linda sewed one into the collar of a shirt and another into a backpack strap, while I watched like a proud, ridiculous soldier. You haven't lost your touch, she said, smiling. I wanted to punch the wall and hug her at the same time. The button cameras clicked into place, and I checked the feed. Clear video, clear audio, timestamp locking. Good. Gasp. Even now, thinking of those tiny lenses made a cold shiver run down my arms. Ethan was brave, more brave than his years. When I told him the plan, he didn't hesitate. He looked me in the eyes and said, I want to do it, Grandma. I want to get my things and bring back proof. His voice was steady, but his jaw trembled. I could see the boy I raised clinging to courage as if it were rope. We rehearsed the story he'd tell, went to a friend's house after school, texted Dad, came back at 10:15, found the house dark. We practiced how he'd open his room, where he'd look, what he should never touch. If you see the candlestick, I told him quietly, take pictures. Don't touch. Leave it where it is. He nodded, absorbing every word like a map to safety. I sewed the second camera into the shoulder seam of his old jacket. Linda tucked the third into a slim lamp camera that looked like a normal floor lamp, but hummed with a secret. From my living room, I could see through the feeds. From Linda's car nearby, she could watch the whole street. Backup was in place. That night, I hardly slept. I lay awake listening to the quiet house, the city humming dimly beyond my windows, my hand tight around the old badge in the drawer. Sigh. Memories came. Cases solved, midnight interviews, suspects who tried to smile their way out of handcuffs. I thought of the little boy asleep on my couch with a healed smile and a broken confidence. I thought of my son's hollow eyes at the station. Then I whispered out loud to the dark, like a benediction and a threat all at once. We're coming for you. The plan was not just to catch Chelsea in a lie. It was to give Rob a choice he could no longer ignore, the choice between a polished lie and the screams of his son caught on video. That would force his eyes open in a way my words had failed to do. We rehearsed exit signals too, because what's a plan without safe ways out? 2 quick knocks on the car would mean leave now. 1 honk would mean call police. Ethan would carry a small power bank because batteries fail at the worst times, and a pre-written message ready to send to me if he felt threatened. Linda would be on the line, and Captain Spencer, my old friend, would be within a short drive, his presence a quiet threat waiting to become action. Everything was planned like a chessboard, pieces placed, paths cleared, pawns ready to become queens. Ha ha! Even the worst of us loves that small order in the face of chaos. The morning of the pickup came crisp and bright. Ethan dressed like a child, pretending to be an adult, careful, serious, carrying a backpack with a practiced slouch. My hands were steady as I fit the final camera into his collar. Linda adjusted the wiring, and I saw the small smile on Ethan's face, the one that said, "I can do this." We walked to the car together, and for a second I saw the boy who used to run into my arms and the young man he might become standing side by side. "Be careful," I whispered. He hugged me tight, his cheek pressed against mine, and I could feel his pulse flutter like a trapped bird. "I will, Grandma," he said. Then he climbed into the cab and walked up the path to his father's front door, like any child collecting his life back. From my phone, the feed began to stream. Ethan's steps, the polished doormat, the door opening, the flash of a robe in the hallway. Weeping softly, we watched breathless as he hung his head, opened the room, and the camera showed the mess posters torn, drawers emptied, a photo frame broken. Then the shot shifted under the desk where a dull silver glinted. The feed zoomed slightly, a candlestick antique, heavy and with a dark spot on the base. Blood. My stomach dropped the way it does when you fall from a memory. Linda whispered, "He found it." I whispered back, "Do not touch." He did exactly what we planned, and as he left the room with his bag by his side, the audio picked up a voice downstairs, soft, smug, confident. Chelsea's voice, practicing tenderness, rehearsing the lie she would use. "You'll see, Rob. We have it all planned," she said, meaning the camera would hear everything. My hand shook only once as I hit the record button on my own phone and felt the warmth of anger turn into a cool, sharp focus. The video was already rolling, and the candlestick was captured in plain sight. But what Chelsea said next, when she thought nobody else could hear, would change everything we thought we knew about how careful she was. Would you believe she'd make the one mistake that would burn every secret she'd built? What Chelsea said next still sends chills through me whenever I replay that audio. Her voice was so casual, almost lazy, like someone chatting about dinner plans instead of ruining lives. "Yeah, Gerald," she said, her tone dripping with arrogance. "Everything's lined up. The boy looks guilty, the father's blind, and the old woman? She's next. Once the paperwork's through, we sell, split, and vanish. Just make sure the old lady's will can't be traced back to me." I froze. Her voice came through the tiny speaker, clear as daylight, confident, evil, and careless. Linda's eyes went wide as she sat beside me in the car. "She's admitting it," Linda whispered. I nodded, too stunned to speak. My hands trembled, hovering over the pause button, afraid to move, afraid to miss a single word. Chelsea kept talking, laughing softly. "Haha, you should have seen Rob last night crying over that stupid argument. I told him it's his fault, and he believed me. Poor man doesn't even know what's coming." Oh, dear God, my pulse thundered in my ears. Ethan, bless his brave little heart, stood silently in the hallway while her words poured like poison through the air. The cameras caught every syllable, every cruel smirk reflected in the hallway mirror behind her. And then she said something that made my blood turn to ice. "Once the house is in my name," she said, "the rest is easy. The old woman's got high blood pressure anyway. A little accident, and no one will question it. Trust me, Gerald, I've done this before." Gasp. Linda covered her mouth. "She confessed," I whispered. "On record." Ethan, still holding the bag, didn't flinch. He just looked at the mirror, stared for half a second, and slowly walked away. Exactly as we'd practiced. From my phone screen, I could see every movement. The feed trembled slightly as Ethan flipped outside and down the driveway. My breath didn't come until the sound of the door clicked shut behind him. When he reached the street, Linda started the car, rolling quietly toward him. I opened the back door and pulled him in, hugging him so tightly he could barely breathe. "You did it," I whispered. "You did it perfectly." He smiled, shaking, whispering, "Grandma, she was laughing about you." I nodded, holding back tears, weeping softly. "I know, sweetheart, I know. But now we have her voice, her words, her truth. Linda looked at me in the rearview mirror. Commander, that's enough to reopen every file she ever closed. I nodded. Not yet. We'll go for the kill when she least expects it. That night, the three of us sat at my kitchen table. The city outside glowed quietly, the kind of light that hides secrets rather than revealing them. I replayed the recording again, the same phrase echoing over and over. The old woman's got high blood pressure anyway. Every time I heard it, my jaw tightened. Sigh. I'd spent decades serving justice, believing in the system. But the system didn't always protect the innocent. Sometimes it needed a push. Ethan reached for my hand. Grandma, what if she tries to hurt Dad next? I looked at him and said gently, that's why we're going to end it. Properly. His eyes widened. How? I leaned closer, whispering, we'll let her trap herself. Linda smiled faintly, understanding exactly what I meant. She'll come to you, won't she? She said. I nodded. She's panicking already. Once she realizes Ethan didn't return home, she'll think I've turned him against her. And when that happens, she'll try to control the narrative. That's when I'll open the door and invite her to talk. The next morning, as expected, my phone rang. Her number flashed on the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. Chelsea, I said calmly. Her voice came through, fake concern dripping from every word. Elena. Haha, she sounded like a stage actress playing the role of concerned mother. Don't worry, I said quietly. He's safe. He's with me. Oh, she gasped, feigning relief. That's wonderful. You know how emotional he can get. Rob was so upset. Maybe we could all meet, clear the air? The hook. Yes, I replied, voice steady. Let's do that. Why don't you both come tomorrow afternoon? I'll make lunch. No police, no shouting, just family. She hesitated, then said softly, tomorrow the show begins. Linda and I spent the rest of the day preparing. Every corner of the house became part of the plan. Cameras disguised as photo frames, microphones hidden inside flower vases, a backup recorder in my pendant. I kept the recording from the house safely stored in 3 separate drives. One for me, one for Linda, one for Spencer. We weren't leaving anything to chance. That evening, I sat beside Ethan again. You don't have to be here tomorrow, I told him. You've done enough. I want to stay. I want to see her face when she realizes she's caught. I smiled sadly. You sound like your grandma. He grinned faintly. Guess it runs in the family. I'm proud of you, my boy. The next day came too slowly. Morning sunlight poured through the window, calm and deceptive. I dressed neatly, soft blue cardigan, my late husband's watch, a calm smile that hid the storm beneath. Linda arrived early with Spencer, who stayed outside in plain clothes, ready to move if things went wrong. At 2003 p.m., a car stopped in front of my house. I peeked through the curtain. There she was. Chelsea, in her spotless white dress, hair done, sunglasses perched like a crown. Rob followed behind her, his face tired, conflicted, unaware of the war waiting to unfold inside. Ethan's hand found mine under the table. Sigh. It's time, Grandma. Yes, I whispered. It's time. I opened the door and smiled warmly. Chelsea, Rob, come in. Her voice was honey sweet. Elena, thank you for agreeing to this. I just want us all to move forward. Oh, I'm sure we will, I said gently. They walked in. I could smell her perfume before she even reached the sofa. Something about it, too strong, too rehearsed, made my stomach twist. She sat gracefully, crossed her legs, and smiled that same deceitful smile I'd seen the night at the station. Where's Ethan? Rob asked nervously. He's here, I said softly. But let's talk first. Chelsea tilted her head, all fake warmth. Of course. I just want peace, Elena. We're family, after all. I almost laughed again. Ha ha. Oh, I believe you, I said, pouring tea. In fact, I'm counting on it. She frowned slightly, sensing the change in my tone. What do you mean? I met her gaze and said calmly, I mean, it's time for everyone to see the kind of peace you bring. The cameras blinked silently. Linda watched from the other room. Spencer's car engine idled across the street, and as Chelsea opened her mouth to speak, Ethan stepped out from the hallway. His face calm, brave, ready. For the first time she looked unsettled. And that's when I knew the trap had closed, because what Chelsea said next, in that perfect living room silence, would be the moment her mask finally cracked, and every secret she'd buried for years would come spilling out, all by her own tongue. Chelsea blinked, her mouth half open as if she'd walked into the wrong scene of her own play. The silence in that little living room was thick enough to choke on. For a heartbeat she kept the mask, the sweet smile, the polished posture, but I saw the twitch in her jaw, the tiny pulse at her throat. People like her can hold their performance for hours, but not forever. Well, she said finally, voice sugar smooth, isn't this cozy? 3 generations, 1 table. I leaned back, folded my hands around my teacup, and gave her a long, calm look. Sigh. Family deserves the truth, don't you think? She laughed, light and fake. Ha ha! Truth? Oh, Elena, you've been watching too many detective dramas. I only came to make peace. Peace, I murmured, is easy when nobody remembers the war. Rob shifted uncomfortably. Mom, please. I raised a hand, never taking my eyes off Chelsea. Relax, Rob. Let your wife speak. Chelsea crossed her legs, leaned forward. You're trying to turn Ethan against me. You filled his head with nonsense. Ethan's fingers tightened around my sleeve, but he stayed silent. I smiled faintly. Nonsense, you say? Then tell me, Chelsea, why did you call Gerald Hayes last night? Just a flicker, but it was enough. Her lips parted, then curved back into that perfect smile. I don't know what you mean. Oh, I think you do. You were planning your next move, weren't you? Talking about me, about the house, about accidents? She blinked. Accidents? Yes, I said softly. The kind you've had before 3 times, if I'm counting right. Her eyes narrowed now. The air changed. You could feel it. Rob looked between us, confused. What's going on? Ask your wife, I said, never breaking eye contact. Chelsea laughed again, too quickly. Elena, this is ridiculous. You're delusional. Then say it on record. I pulled the small silver remote from under the tray and pressed play. The speaker hidden behind the vase clicked alive, and her own voice filled the room. The boy looks guilty. The father's blind. And the old woman? She's next. Once the paperwork's through, we sell, split, and vanish. A little accident, and no one will question it. Trust me, Gerald. I've done this before. Rob's face went pale. Chelsea, what is that? She stood up abruptly, the mask cracking. That's not me. That's edited. She's framing me. I stayed seated, calm as stone. Funny, the timestamp matches last night. Same phone, same house, same lie. Her hands started to shake. You can't prove. Oh, but I can, I said quietly, because while you were busy rehearsing your victim act, Ethan was there. He saw you. He recorded everything. She turned toward him, fury flashing through the fake warmth. You little... Stop, I said sharply. Sit down. The command hit her like a slap. Old habits die hard. Criminals always respond to authority. She sat, trembling, glaring at me with those cold eyes that finally showed their true color. Rob stared at her, voice breaking. Chelsea, please, tell me this isn't true. She opened her mouth, closed it, then laughed, a hollow, desperate sound. Ha 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 ha. You think you're so clever, don't you, Elena? You think you can ruin me? I'm not ruining you, I said. You already did that yourself. She leaned forward, voice dropping to a hiss. You don't know who you're dealing with. Oh, I do, I replied softly. A woman who hides behind perfume and pity, who kills slowly with charm, not poison. Rob looked at me, tears forming. Mom, what do we do? Nothing, I said gently. The truth will do it for us. Right on cue, the door opened. Linda stepped in, holding her phone, recording live. Behind her came Spencer, uniform crisp, expression unreadable. Chelsea's head whipped around. What is this? Spencer stepped forward. Chelsea Brooks, also known as Vanessa Jimenez Ruiz, you're under arrest for conspiracy, attempted fraud, and suspected involvement in multiple homicides. Her mouth fell open. You can't! You have no evidence! Linda raised the phone. Oh, I think the internet might disagree. We've been live for the last 5 minutes. That broke her. The scream that came out wasn't elegant anymore. It was raw, animal, desperate. She lunged for the door, but Spencer caught her wrist mid-air, snapping the cuffs closed with a metallic click. Weeping softly, Rob sank to his knees, face in his hands. Ethan stood frozen beside me, breathing fast. I put my arm around him, whispering, "It's over, sweetheart." "It's over." Chelsea turned back once as Spencer led her away. "You'll regret this, old woman. You'll regret ever crossing me." I smiled faintly. "Maybe, but not tonight." When the door closed, the house fell silent except for Rob's quiet sobs. He looked up at me, eyes red. I didn't want to see it. I knelt beside him, brushing his hair like when he was little. "It's all right, son. Sometimes love blinds us until pain opens our eyes." He nodded, tears falling. "Thank you for saving him." I looked at Ethan, who was watching the empty doorway with wide eyes. "He saved us both," I said softly. That night, after everyone left and the city settled back into its tired hum, I sat alone by the window. The moonlight pooled across the floor, silver and calm. I held my badge one more time, running my thumb over the old scratches. "Deep sigh. Case closed," I whispered. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. People like Chelsea don't act alone. Snakes travel in pairs. And somewhere out there, Gerald Hayes was still free. I thought the nightmare was over when those cuffs snapped shut. But the next morning, when my phone rang again, a new voice on the other end whispered, "Commander Stone, we need to talk about what Gerald did after Chelsea's arrest." And just like that, the storm wasn't over. The next morning came cold and gray, the kind of dawn that feels heavy before it even begins. I had barely closed my eyes when the phone started ringing. For a second, I thought it was Spencer, maybe with more paperwork, but the voice on the other end wasn't his. It was low, cautious, almost afraid. "Commander Stone," it whispered, "you don't know me, but you should. My name is Aaron Vale. I used to work for Gerald Hayes." My heart skipped. "Go on," I said quietly. He hesitated. "I don't have much time." "Gerald knows Chelsea's been arrested, and he's cleaning house-erasing files, transferring money, deleting accounts. If you want to catch him, you have to move fast." "Where is he?" "He's at his firm right now, destroying evidence." "But listen, he's not just her lawyer. He's her partner in everything. Every signature, every will, every payment went through him. And if he gets rid of those records, you'll never prove it." The line went dead. Sigh. For a few seconds, I just sat there, staring at the phone, feeling that old familiar burn of urgency light up again. After everything, after seeing Chelsea dragged away, I'd let myself believe it was done. But evil has roots. It never ends with one arrest. I called Spencer. "Captain, we've got a problem." He answered instantly. "I'm already at the station, Commander. What's wrong?" "Gerald Hayes. He's covering his tracks. We need a warrant now." He cursed under his breath. "We've been trying, but the DA's office says we don't have enough probable cause yet." "Then make some," I said sharply. He sighed. "We're working on it. You know how slow this system can be." "Too slow," I muttered. When I hung up, I looked at Ethan, who was watching me from the couch, his face still pale but eyes brighter than before. "What's going on, Grandma?" I forced a small smile. "Just tying up loose ends, sweetheart." "Is it that lawyer guy?" "Yes," I said softly. "He's the one who helped her do all this. We need him caught too." An hour later, Linda arrived, eyes sharp and alert. "You heard?" "Yeah," I said. He's deleting everything. Then we stop him, she said simply. We both knew what that meant. I pulled out my old notebook and turned to the last blank page. We'll do this by the book, but if the book's too slow, we'll write a new one. Ha ha, that's the commander I remember. We grabbed our coats, left Ethan with Rob, who still couldn't meet my eyes, and headed out. The streets of Delhi were waking up, traffic building, vendors shouting, the city alive again. But all I could think about was a man sitting in a glass office, shredding the truth, one page at a time. Gerald's firm was a polished building in the business district, mirrored walls, fake smiles, and money in the air. We parked across the street. Linda pulled out her phone. Aaron said he's in the archive room, second floor. There's a back entrance through the parking lot. I looked at her. You realize we're not exactly law enforcement anymore? She shrugged. We're retired, not dead. Sigh. I couldn't help smiling at that. We walked through the parking lot, blending in with the morning rush. My old badge was tucked inside my coat. Not official anymore, but sometimes symbols matter more than paperwork. When we reached the side door, Linda slipped a small tool into the lock. Click. Still got it, she whispered. Inside, the corridor smelled like dust and old paper. The hum of a shredder echoed faintly from deeper inside. We followed the sound, step by careful step, until we reached the glass door marked Records Room. Through the frosted glass, I saw him. Gerald Hayes. Mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of smile that never touched his eyes. He was feeding documents into a shredder with the calmness of a man brushing crumbs off a table. Linda leaned toward me. We need to catch him in the act. I nodded. Camera. She lifted her phone, hit record. We pushed open the door. Morning, Gerald, I said softly. He froze, his hand halfway to the shredder. Slowly he turned, eyes widening. Commander Stone, I was wondering when you'd show up. Oh, you remember me, I said. Good. Saves introductions. He smiled faintly. You have no authority here. Maybe not, I said, stepping closer, but I still know a guilty man when I see one. He tilted his head, unbothered. You can't prove anything without those documents. Then why destroy them? I asked. He didn't answer. The shredder hummed on, swallowing another page. Linda lifted her phone higher. Obstruction of justice looks terrible on film. His eyes flicked to the phone, then to me. He sighed, forced a calm smile, and stepped away from the machine. Fine. I have nothing to hide. Oh, you have plenty, I said. We have recordings, phone calls, offshore accounts, all leading back to you. Chelsea might have played the lead role, but you wrote the script. For the first time, his face twitched. Just slightly. But enough. Careful, Commander, he said softly. You don't want to make enemies in the wrong places. I already did when I started chasing the truth. Then, like clockwork, Spencer's voice came from behind us. Step away from the shredder, Gerald. I turned. He stood in the doorway, badge raised, 2 officers behind him. You're under arrest for obstruction of justice, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Gerald laughed, a hollow sound. Ha ha! You don't have a warrant. Spencer smiled. Actually, we do. Signed 10 minutes ago. Thank you for stalling him, Commander. For a split second, Gerald's composure cracked. Then he straightened his jacket. You think this ends with me? You have no idea who you're dealing with. You're the man who built his fortune on broken families and dead hearts, but every empire of lies ends the same way. With one piece of paper they didn't shred fast enough. The sound of metal on wrists always felt like closure to me, cold, final, honest. As they led him out, Gerald glanced back, eyes dark. You won't make it out clean, Stone. None of you will. I met his gaze steadily. That's the thing about being old, Gerald. Clean or not, I've got nothing left to lose. Outside, the air felt lighter. Linda exhaled, sigh, a shaky laugh slipping out. You really do know how to pick fights. I smiled faintly. Only with people who deserve them. We watched the car drive away, sirens echoing faintly. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. But peace never lasts long for people like me. When I got home that evening, the sun was dipping low. Ethan ran to the door, hugging me tight. Is it over, Grandma? I held him close, whispering, Almost, sweetheart. Almost. But later that night, as I sat by the window, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. You may have caught the lawyer, Commander, but you still don't know who hired them first. My breath caught. Sigh. And just like that, the shadows started moving again. His message stayed on my screen, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. You still don't know who hired them first. Sigh. I stared at it for a long time, the words burning holes into the quiet. My first instinct was disbelief. After all, I'd seen enough manipulation to recognize a bluff. But something about the tone. It wasn't just a threat. It was a reminder. Someone else was behind all this. Someone who'd been watching the entire time. I typed back quickly, Who is this? Just 3 gray dots that appeared, blinked, then vanished. The house felt colder suddenly, like the walls had leaned in to listen. Ethan was asleep on the couch, his little chest rising and falling, safe for now. I turned the phone face down and whispered, Not tonight, but my mind was already running. The next morning, I went to the station. Spencer was there, running on coffee and adrenaline. Gerald had already started talking. Typical lawyer, brave until the handcuffs click. But what he said made the air in the room freeze. Chelsea wasn't the mastermind, he said, smirking like a man who still believed he had a card left to play. She was hired. We were both hired. By someone who wanted your family destroyed, Commander. My jaw clenched. Who? He leaned back, almost enjoying my anger. Why don't you ask your son? My pulse spiked. Don't play games, he shrugged. No games, just truth. Rob came to me 2 years ago for help with financial issues. Someone bailed him out anonymously. That's when the contract started. I frowned. What contracts? He smiled, eyes gleaming. Insurance, wills, trusts, all rewritten, all perfectly legal, but all with one outcome, you gone, and Chelsea rich. The person funding it wanted you out of the picture, wanted your house, your land, your name erased. I slammed my hands on the table. Bang. Who paid? You? Gerald's grin widened. You already know the answer. Sigh. I left the interrogation room shaking. Spencer followed me out. Commander, we'll verify everything he's saying. But if it's true, it's not, I snapped. Then softer. It can't be. Because deep down, the part of me that still believed in family refused to even consider it. Rob couldn't have been involved. He was weak, yes, lost, blinded. But evil? No. But the seed was planted, and I hated that it was. That evening, I walked into my old house. The silence hit me like a memory. The smell of polish and wood, the faint perfume of a life that used to be peaceful. Rob was sitting in the living room, head in his hands. He looked up, eyes red. Mom. I just watched him, watched his shoulders tremble like a man collapsing under weight he'd carried too long. She's gone, he said quietly. Chelsea, they moved her to a holding facility. I know, I replied, voice calm. He rubbed his face. I can't believe any of this. How did I not see it? How could I be that blind? Weeping softly, I sat across from him. Love makes fools of all of us, Rob. But right now, I need you to tell me the truth. About 2 years ago, did you take money from anyone? Any loans? Any transfers you didn't question? What? Answer me, he hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes, I was in debt, Mom. Business went bad. Chelsea said she found someone willing to help, a private investor. I never met them. The money came through her lawyer, Gerald Hayes. My heart dropped. He shook his head. I didn't want to. I was desperate. Sigh. I closed my eyes. Desperation. The oldest doorway to damnation. Rob, I whispered, that money came from the same people who tried to destroy us. No, That's impossible, Chelsea said. She lied, I cut in sharply. They all lied, and now you're going to help me find out who's been pulling the strings. That night, Linda joined us at the kitchen table again. The three of us. One broken family, one tired detective, one woman too stubborn to quit. I laid out every file, every email, every note we'd collected. There's someone bigger behind this, I said. Someone who's been using Chelsea and Gerald as puppets. Linda tapped a page, eyes narrowing. Look at this transfer 5 years ago. Same anonymous account that paid Rob's debt. Also paid the retainer for Chelsea's legal name change. Whoever this is, they've been planning this long before Chelsea even met Rob. I looked at the account code. It started with familiar digits. I frowned. Spencer can trace this, I said. He did. And when the call came later that night, his voice was grim. Elena, you're not going to like this. The account's linked to a holding firm registered under a single name, Victoria Kane. I felt the air leave my chest. Gasp. I whispered. Your late husband's sister. My knees nearly gave out. I sat down hard, staring at nothing. Linda whispered, She's alive? I nodded numbly. I thought she died in that car crash 20 years ago. But no, she hadn't died. She'd disappeared. And apparently, she'd spent the last 2 decades building her revenge. It all came flooding back, the old arguments, the estate fight after my husband's death, the inheritance dispute. Victoria always said I stole what was rightfully hers. She swore she'd ruin me, and she had tried slowly, patiently, through others. She hired Chelsea, I said quietly. She found her, funded her, trained her. Linda exhaled. I called Spencer again at dawn, traced her last known address. By noon, we were outside a seaside villa 2 hours from the city. Linda stayed in the car. Spencer stood behind me as I knocked on the door. The door opened. And there she was, older, thinner, eyes sharp as glass. Well, she said, smiling coldly, look who finally followed the breadcrumbs. Why? I asked. My voice trembled. Why my family? She laughed. Ha, because you took mine. You took my brother's love, his home, his money. You left me with nothing. I just returned the favor. I stepped forward, anger shaking my voice. You sent murderers. You used a child as bait. Oh, please, she sneered. Collateral damage. You always cared more about your precious morals than the truth. You deserved to lose everything, Elena. I stared at her for a long, heavy second, then whispered, You lost, Victoria, just like Chelsea, just like Gerald. Every lie leaves a trail. Right then, Spencer stepped forward. Victoria Kane, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Her smile faded, but she didn't resist. She just said quietly, You can't destroy me, Elena. I already destroyed you. They led her away, her laughter fading down the hall. When we drove back home that evening, Ethan ran to meet me. I hugged him tight, feeling every beat of his heart. Weeping softly, It's over now, Grandma, he asked. It's finally over, or so I thought, because later that night, as I tucked Ethan into bed, the phone rang again, this time from an unknown number. And when I answered, a man's voice whispered, You may have caught her, but you still don't know who paid her first. The line crackled softly in my ear, the voice low, calm, and disturbingly amused. You may have caught her, but you still don't know who paid her first. For a moment, I thought it was just another echo from the nightmare we'd survived, another leftover tremor from months of chaos. But then the line didn't hang up. The man was breathing, slow, steady, deliberate. Who is this? I asked, voice sharp, no answer, just that faint hum, and then click. Silence. Sigh. The kind of silence that crawls up your spine and sits there. I looked around my quiet living room, the clock ticking softly, the shadows calm and harmless. But nothing felt harmless anymore. Evil, I'd learned, doesn't disappear. It adapts. By morning, I was back at the station. Spencer was already there, sleeves rolled up, eyes tired. He'd heard the message. I'd recorded it, of course, and now he was running a trace. Numbers burned, he said finally. Disposable SIM, no location ping, voice distorted. Linda leaned against the wall, arms folded. So someone's still pulling strings. Question is, for what? I rubbed my temples. Whoever it is, they're not done. That voice, it didn't sound random. It sounded familiar. Spencer frowned. You think it's someone connected to Victoria? Someone who made sure people like her and Gerald had money to play with. Linda raised an eyebrow. And you think this person's still active? I nodded. They just made contact. That means they're not hiding. They're watching. Back home, Ethan was playing quietly, drawing again. He'd started sketching birds lately, free ones, wings stretched wide. Maybe it was his way of healing. When he saw me, he smiled faintly. Grandma, did you catch the bad people? I forced a smile. Almost, sweetheart. He tilted his head. Almost? Some stories take longer to finish, I said softly, kissing his hair. Sigh. I went to my study, turned on the old laptop, and opened every file I had. Chelsea, Gerald, Victoria, the fake companies, the wire transfers. I stared at the lines of text until they blurred, trying to see what I'd missed. And then, right there, buried in a report from years ago, I found it. A name. A quiet little company listed as the primary trust for every single transaction across all 3 cases. Graywell Finance Ltd. Whispered it aloud. Graywell, it wasn't Gerald's firm. It wasn't Victoria's shell company. It was something else. I dug deeper, searching for its directors, its owner, anything. Only one name came up. Harrison had been my husband's oldest friend. He'd been there the night of the accident that killed him. The room tilted for a second, and I had to grip the desk to steady myself. Linda came in, saw my face, and froze. What is it? I pointed to the screen. He's behind everything. Her eyes widened. Your husband's business partner? Yes. He handled all the estate paperwork after my husband died. He was the one who made sure Victoria got her small cut and told me the rest was secure. You trusted him. I owed him, I whispered bitterly. He saved my husband once, years ago. Or so I thought. Linda leaned over the screen. He built all this from the start. The fake loans, the shells, the offshore transfers. He didn't just want the money, Elena. He wanted everything tied to your husband's name. Legacy. Power. I nodded slowly, heart pounding. And Victoria, she was just another pawn. He used her anger. He used everyone. That night, I met Spencer in the car outside Graywell's headquarters, a tall glass building downtown, gleaming and soulless. He looked at me carefully. You sure about this? He's the one. We can't arrest him without proof. I'm not here to arrest him, I said quietly. I just want to hear him say it. He sighed. That's exactly what you said before Chelsea confessed. And it worked, I reminded him. I walked into the lobby with calm steps, my heart steady like a ticking clock. Harrison was waiting. Of course he was. Always the gentleman, always the smile. It's been ages, not long enough, I replied. We sat in his glass office, the city stretching behind him. I assume you're here about Victoria, he said smoothly. A tragic case. I heard. I leaned forward. You funded her. He smiled faintly. Such an ugly word, funded. She wanted justice. You mean revenge, he shrugged. Call it what you like. You and your family took more than your share. I stared at him. So you sent Chelsea. You paid Gerald. You built it all. He didn't deny it. He just smiled, that slow, poisonous smile. You were supposed to break quietly, Elena, to fade out. You weren't supposed to fight, I whispered. You killed my husband, didn't you? The smile faltered, just slightly, then returned. Accidents happen, he said softly. That was enough. Spencer and Linda were already recording from the next room. The moment that confession slipped past his lips, they walked in. Harrison froze, that old charm cracking under fluorescent light. Mr. Cole, Spencer said, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Harrison laughed, a cold, brittle sound. Ha ha, you think this ends with me? There are others. You'll never stop it. I stepped closer, voice calm but trembling. Maybe not. But I'll stop you. He sneered. You've aged, Elena, and you've rotted, I said softly. As they led him away, I finally exhaled, the weight of years leaving my chest. That night, back home, I tucked Ethan in again. He looked up at me sleepily. This time, it's over. He smiled. Good. You look tired. I chuckled. I am, my boy, but it's a good tired. I sat by his bed, humming softly, until his breathing steadied. The house felt light again, like it could finally breathe with us. Later, I walked outside. The stars were faint, but they were there. I looked up and whispered, We did it, my love. Your family's safe now. A tear slid down my cheek, warm and quiet. Weeping softly. Then I turned toward the house again, the faintest smile tugging at my lips, because even though the war was over, I knew something deeper. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about finally sleeping without fear. But just as I closed the door and the night fell still, my phone buzzed one last time. A single message glowed on the screen. Justice is never the end, Commander. It's just the beginning. I sighed and whispered to the dark. Then let it begin somewhere else. The message blinked once on my screen, faint against the quiet room. Justice is never the end, Commander. It's just the beginning. I stared at it for a long moment, then set the phone down beside my cup of tea. The steam curled upward, soft and harmless. Sigh. For the first time in a long time, the words didn't make me flinch. They made me smile. Let it begin somewhere else, I whispered to the dark, because for me it was the end. The next morning, the house felt different, lighter, warmer, alive again. The kind of peace that doesn't shout, it hums. The curtains swayed in the morning breeze, the smell of toast filled the kitchen, and for once there wasn't a single shadow that felt like it was hiding something. Ethan sat at the table, legs swinging, drawing again. Birds? Always birds. Free ones. Grandma, he said, grinning, can we go to the park today? I laughed softly. Ha ha, we can go anywhere you want, sweetheart. He looked up, eyes bright. Even fly a kite? Even two, I said. I turned off the kettle, poured him warm milk, and realized how long it had been since I'd done something so ordinary without fear tugging at me from behind. The smallest things, pouring milk, hearing laughter, felt like miracles again. Later that day, Spencer stopped by. No uniforms, no files, no questions, just him, carrying a small potted plant. What's this? I asked, smiling. He shrugged. A peace lily. For peace. You've earned it. I laughed quietly, setting it on the windowsill. Thank you, Captain. Commander, he corrected gently, smiling. No one's earned that title more. We sat for a while, watching Ethan run around the yard. You know, Spencer said softly, there's talk in the department about reopening your old cases. People are inspired by what you did. I smiled faintly. They can handle it. I'm done chasing ghosts. Then what will you do now? I looked out the window, the sunlight catching on Ethan's hair, turning it gold. I'll live, I said, something I forgot how to do. That evening, Linda came over with takeout. We sat on the porch, eating noodles from the box, laughing about old cases. She nudged me lightly. You know, for someone who said she was retired, you sure raised hell this year. I smiled, shaking my head. I just stopped letting it live in my house. We both laughed, a long, honest laugh that felt like sunlight. When night fell, the city outside grew quiet again. I tucked Ethan into bed, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "You're safe now, my boy." "Always." He smiled in his sleep. I sat by the window once more, the peace lily blooming faintly under the lamplight. I thought of everything, the lies, the pain, the strength it took to keep going. And then the faces that made it worth it. My husband, my son, my grandson, myself, all still here somehow. Weeping softly, I wiped my tears and smiled. "You did it, old woman," I whispered to my reflection. "You really did it." And as I leaned back, closing my eyes, I could almost hear his voice again, my husband's soft chuckle, the same one he had the night before he left this world. "You always said you wanted peace, Elena." "Looks like you found it," I smiled, whispering into the dark, "Finally!" The next morning the sky was clear, the air gentle. I took Ethan to the park, just like I promised. He ran ahead with his kite, laughter echoing through the wind. I stood there, watching it rise higher and higher, a red shape dancing in the blue. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't thinking about justice or revenge or fear. I was just a grandmother, watching her grandson fly a kite. Soft sigh. Sometimes life doesn't give us a perfect ending. It gives us a peaceful one. And maybe that's better, because after all the storms, after all the loss, what truly matters is that we're still standing, still breathing, still loving, still capable of joy. And as the kite disappeared into the sun, I whispered one last time, "For every lie that broke us, may the truth set someone else free." It was the beginning of peace. If this story touched you, even a little, leave a comment, my dear. And remember, you deserve peace, love, and respect. Take care of your heart. I'll see you in the next story.